Imagine a man who, at 70 years old, led an army to save a kingdom, a knight who survived dozens of battles, served 5 kings, and was called the best knight that ever lived. This is William Marshal, the unsung hero of the Middle Ages. But how did he become a legend? Picture England in the 12th century, a time of chaos and conflict, where loyalty and skill with a sword were essential for survival. From a wandering knight to regent of the entire Kingdom of England, William Marshal's life was nothing short of a medieval epic. He didn't just conquer glory in tournaments. He played a crucial role in politics and war, shaping the destiny of England throughout the 12th and 13th centuries. The story of William Marshal is one of extraordinary courage and unwavering honor. Born in an age where most men were lucky to reach 40, he lived to 72, fighting his final battle when most men would have long retired. This wasn't just any battle. It was the Battle of Lincoln in 1217, where he personally led royal forces against French-backed rebels threatening to tear England apart. What made a landless knight rise to become one of the most powerful men in medieval Europe? How did he navigate the treacherous politics of the Angevin court, where kings and princes plotted against each other? And what secrets allowed him to remain undefeated in combat throughout his remarkable career? William Marshal's journey took him from being a childhood hostage with an executioner's noose around his neck to becoming the protector of a 9-year-old king and savior of the English monarchy. He didn't just witness history, he made it, shaped it, and left an indelible mark that we can still feel today. If you love history and want to unravel the mysteries of great empires like this video, subscribe to the Medieval Archives and don't miss a single episode. Join us as we explore the extraordinary life of William Marshal, the knight whose legacy defined what it meant to live by the code of chivalry. William Marshal began his remarkable journey not as a powerful lord, but as a knight errant, a warrior without lands, traveling from tournament to tournament across medieval Europe. But what exactly was a knight errant in the 12th century? Picture this: a young man on horseback, armor gleaming in the sun, riding between castles and towns with nothing but his skill, his sword, and his reputation. This was William Marshal in his early years, hungry for glory and fortune in a world where both could be won at the point of a lance. Medieval tournaments were far more brutal and consequential than the romanticized jousts we see in movies. These were chaotic, dangerous melees where hundreds of knights fought in teams across miles of countryside. When William entered the tournament circuit around 1166, these events weren't just sport, they were deadly serious business. What most people don't realize is that capturing opponents was far more profitable than killing them. A victorious knight could claim his defeated opponent's horse, armor, and weapons, or demand a hefty ransom for their return. William Marshal proved himself exceptionally skilled at this game. Historical records suggest he captured more than 500 knights during his tournament career, an almost unbelievable achievement that brought him tremendous wealth. One fascinating story from this period reveals Marshal's character. After a tournament near Le Mans, the French knights he had defeated accused him of fighting too aggressively. Rather than backing down, William reportedly replied, "I did not come to this tournament to sing songs or pluck flowers, but to fight with lance and sword like a man." This defiance earned him even greater respect among his peers. The tournaments also served as medieval networking events. Knights could catch the eye of powerful lords looking for capable warriors to join their households. William's exceptional performance eventually brought him to the attention of Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the most influential women in medieval Europe, who recommended him as a tutor in chivalry for her son, the future King Richard the Lionheart. But here's something truly remarkable about William Marshal. While he built his reputation as a young man in these brutal competitions, his courage never diminished with age. Did you know that at 70 years old, William personally led the English troops at the Battle of Lincoln, defeating the rebels and securing power for young King Henry III? When most men would be content to direct from the rear, William rode at the front of his army, proving that age was no barrier to bravery. This extraordinary longevity made him unique among medieval warriors. In an age when most men were lucky to reach 40, William remained an active military commander well into his 70s. The chronicles describe how the elderly Marshal, wearing full battle armor despite his age, led the charge against forces much younger than himself, inspiring his troops with his legendary presence. William's early years as a tournament fighter laid the foundation for everything that followed. He learned not just combat skills, but political savvy, leadership, and the delicate art of loyalty, lessons that would serve him well as he rose from landless knight to one of the most powerful men in the kingdom. In 1189, after decades of proving himself on tournament fields and battlegrounds, William Marshal's life transformed through a single extraordinary stroke of fortune. At the respectable age of 43, this landless knight married Isabel de Clare, the 18-year-old heiress to the vast earldom of Pembroke. But this wasn't just any marriage. It was a turning point that would catapult William from skilled warrior to one of the most powerful men in the realm. Isabel wasn't just wealthy. She was a political powerhouse in her own right. Her father, Richard de Clare, known as Strongbow, had been a legendary figure who helped establish English control in Ireland. Her mother, Eowulf MacMurrough, was an Irish princess who brought substantial lands to the marriage. When both of Isabel's parents died, she became one of the most eligible heiresses in Europe, with vast holdings spanning Wales, Ireland, England, and Normandy. Now, you might wonder how a landless knight, even one as famous as William Marshal, managed to secure such a prestigious match. The answer lies in the politics of the time. King Richard the Lionheart had just ascended the throne and needed loyal, capable men he could trust. William had served Richard's father faithfully, and Richard recognized his worth. Arranging this marriage was both a reward for William's loyalty and a shrewd political move, placing a trusted veteran in control of strategically vital territories. What's fascinating about this marriage is that despite being arranged for political and financial advantage, it appears to have been genuinely successful. William and Isabel would go on to have 10 children together, 5 sons and 5 daughters, and historical records suggest a partnership of mutual respect. In an age when powerful men often neglected or mistreated their wives, William consistently involved Isabel in his affairs and trusted her judgment. The transformation in William's status was immediate and dramatic. Overnight, he went from a respected but landless knight to one of the wealthiest men in the kingdom. Though the official title of Earl of Pembroke wouldn't be formally granted until 10 years later in 1199, William effectively assumed the position and power immediately through his marriage. This wealth brought responsibilities as well. William now controlled extensive territories that required defense and management. He became responsible for building and maintaining castles, administering justice, collecting taxes, and raising troops when the king required them. One of his most impressive building projects was Kilkenny Castle in Ireland, parts of which still stand today. Perhaps most importantly, this marriage freed William from financial dependence on royal patronage. For the first time in his life, he had his own power base. This independence would prove crucial in the turbulent years ahead, especially during the reign of King John, when William would need to carefully balance loyalty to the crown with protection of his own interests. This marriage marked a transition in William's life from warrior to statesman. While he would still prove himself on the battlefield, his new position demanded diplomatic skills, political savvy, and administrative talent. William excelled in these new roles just as he had on the tournament field, showing a remarkable ability to adapt to changing circumstances. The story of William and Isabel reminds us that in medieval times, marriage was the most powerful tool for social advancement and alliance building. For William Marshal, this strategic union didn't just bring wealth and titles. It gave him the platform from which he would eventually help shape the future of England itself. By 1216, William Marshal had already lived an extraordinary life spanning 7 decades. He had risen from a landless knight to one of England's most powerful earls through loyalty, martial prowess, and political savvy. But the greatest challenge of his remarkable career was yet to come. That October, King John died, leaving his 9-year-old son Henry as heir to a kingdom in chaos. England was torn apart by civil war, with rebel barons who had invited the French Prince Louis to take the throne. Nearly half the country was under French control. The royal treasury was empty. Most nobles had abandoned the royal cause. It seemed the Plantagenet dynasty was about to collapse. In this desperate hour, the assembled loyal barons turned to the one man they believed could save the kingdom, William Marshal, now 70 years old. When they named him protector of the young king and regent of England, William responded with words that would define his legacy. "I am an old man, and poor in wealth and friends, But I would rather be dragged by horses than see the king lose his rightful inheritance which his ancestors have possessed. Think about this moment. At an age when most medieval men were long dead, William took on perhaps the most difficult job in Europe. The odds against him were overwhelming. The French controlled London and much of southern England. Many powerful barons supported Prince Louis. Most of Europe expected the English monarchy to fall. William's first brilliant move was to reissue the controversial Magna Carta, which King John had reluctantly signed, but later rejected. This strategic decision won back many rebel barons who distrusted the royal family. Then, with characteristic boldness, William decided that rather than playing defense, he would take the fight directly to the enemy. In May 1217 came William's most astonishing feat. Leading a royal army against the French allied rebels at Lincoln, William didn't command from the rear, as might be expected of a septuagenarian. Instead, he donned his armor, mounted his warhorse, and personally led the charge into battle. Witnesses reported that the elderly marshal fought with the vigor of a man a third his age, inspiring his troops to a decisive victory that turned the tide of the war. What makes this victory even more remarkable is a lesser-known fact. William had actually been offered generous terms by the French to switch sides. Prince Louis promised William he could keep all his lands if he supported the French claim. William not only refused but reportedly said, "I have served the father and will not betray the son, though all forsake him." This loyalty, in an age when many nobles switched allegiances for personal gain, was extraordinary. The Lincoln victory was followed by another crucial win at sea, where English ships destroyed a French fleet bringing reinforcements. By September 1217, Prince Louis was forced to sign the Treaty of Lambeth and withdraw from England. Against all odds, William Marshal had saved the English monarchy. During his 2 years as regent, William didn't just win the war, he laid the groundwork for stable governance. He restored royal authority, began rebuilding the treasury, and worked to reconcile former enemies. He showed remarkable mercy to former rebels, allowing them to recover their lands by paying reasonable fines rather than harsh punishments. A forward-thinking approach that helped heal the kingdom's wounds. William served as regent until his death in 1219, governing wisely and ensuring a smooth transition for when young Henry would eventually rule independently. His regency is considered by historians as a masterclass in crisis leadership that preserved the English monarchy and shaped the nation's future. Did you know that William Marshal led a battle at 70 years old? If you're enjoying this video, hit that like button, share it with your history-loving friends, and subscribe to the Medieval Archives for more incredible stories from the Middle Ages. And tell us in the comments, what do you think was William Marshal's greatest achievement? Was it his tournament victories, his loyal service to 5 kings, or perhaps saving the English monarchy in his 70s? We'd love to hear your thoughts. As William Marshal approached the end of his extraordinary life in 1219, he made a decision that revealed the depth of his spiritual convictions. Feeling his strength failing at age 72, the man who had shaped English history for half a century prepared for his final journey with characteristic thoroughness and honor. What few people know is that decades earlier, as a young knight, William had made a solemn promise. During a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, he had pledged that when his time came, he would join the Knights Templar. These warrior monks were among the most respected and feared fighting forces of the medieval world, sworn to protect pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem and defend Christian territories in the Holy Land. As death approached, William remembered this youthful vow. He summoned the master of the temple to his bedside and asked to be admitted into the order. This wasn't merely a symbolic gesture. William took the full vows of the Templars, embracing poverty, chastity, and obedience, and donning the white mantle with its distinctive red cross. For a man who had accumulated vast wealth and power, this final act of renunciation speaks volumes about his spiritual values. The scene of his death was remarkably moving. Chronicles tell us that William distributed his wealth among his children, bid farewell to his beloved wife Isabel, and then gave detailed instructions for his burial. With his affairs in order, the greatest knight of his age peacefully surrendered his soul on May 14, 1219. William's funeral was one of the most significant public events of its time. His body was carried in solemn procession through London to the Temple Church, the English headquarters of the Knights Templar. The round church, modeled after the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, still stands today in the legal district of London. There, among fallen Templars, they laid to rest the man who had served 5 kings and saved a kingdom. What's truly remarkable is that you can still visit William Marshal's tomb today. In the Temple Church in London, you'll find his effigy, a life-sized stone figure of a knight in repose, hands clasped in prayer, legs crossed to signify he had taken the crusader's vow. Despite the church suffering damage during the Second World War, William's effigy survived and remains one of the most important medieval monuments in Britain. The story of William's connection to the Templars adds another fascinating layer to his legacy. The Knights Templar were not only warriors but also pioneering bankers and administrators who helped develop many financial practices we still use today. They were known for their strict code of conduct, their exceptional training, and their absolute loyalty to their cause, qualities that William Marshal embodied throughout his life. William's legacy extended far beyond his own lifetime. His eldest son, also named William, inherited the Earldom of Pembroke, but died childless 5 years later. His other sons followed in succession, but remarkably all 5 of William's sons died without male heirs. His daughters, however, married into powerful families, and through them, William's bloodline spread throughout the aristocracy of Europe. Today, countless people, including several royal families, can trace their ancestry back to this extraordinary knight. Perhaps the most enduring aspect of William's legacy was the biography commissioned by his family shortly after his death. Known as The History of William Marshal, it's the earliest surviving biography of a medieval knight written in the vernacular language rather than Latin. This remarkable document provides us with unprecedented insights into medieval chivalry, tournaments, warfare, and politics. Without it, much of what we know about this pivotal period would have been lost to history. William Marshal's life spanned one of the most transformative periods in English history. He witnessed and influenced the evolution of knighthood from simple warriors to an idealized class with a complex code of chivalry. His career traced the development of royal governance from the raw power politics of Henry II to the more institutional approach that would develop under Henry III. In many ways, William Marshal didn't just live through medieval history, he helped create it. Long before William Marshal became the powerful Earl of Pembroke, his family carried a hereditary title that would eventually transform into one of the most prestigious positions in the English royal court, a position that remarkably still exists today, over 800 years later. The story begins with William's father, John Marshal, who served as Marshal to King Henry I. But what exactly did a Marshal do in medieval England? The role originated as a humble but essential one. The Marshal was responsible for the royal stables and horses, a critical job in an age when horsepower was literal. Think of it as a combination of stable master, quartermaster, and security chief for the royal household. By the time John Marshal held the position, it had evolved into a hereditary office with expanded responsibilities, including maintaining order at court, organizing royal tournaments, and managing the king's household knights. John Marshal passed this title to his eldest son, but when that son died without heirs, the marshalsea eventually came to William. Here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. When William Marshal married Isabel de Clare and became Earl of Pembroke, something unprecedented happened. For the first time, the hereditary title of Marshal merged with an earldom. People began referring to William as the Marshal because of his family office, but also as the Earl because of his new rank. Gradually, these titles blended together, and William became known as the Earl Marshal, creating a new position that combined the duties of the Marshal with the prestige and authority of an Earl. What makes this particularly remarkable is how William elevated the office through his personal prestige. He wasn't just any Marshal. He was the greatest knight of his age, a tournament champion, royal advisor, Regent of England, and savior of the monarchy. When people heard Earl Marshal, they associated it with William's extraordinary reputation. After William's death, the title passed to his sons in succession. But here's an interesting twist. When all 5 of William's sons died without male heirs, the title of Earl Marshal passed through the female line, and eventually to the powerful Howard family, Dukes of Norfolk, who still hold it today. In fact, if you watched King Charles's coronation in 2023, You saw the current Duke of Norfolk performing his hereditary duty as Earl Marshal, organizing and overseeing the entire ceremony, a direct continuation of the office William Marshal held 8 centuries ago. The Earl Marshal's role gradually evolved over the centuries. By the late Middle Ages, the position had become primarily ceremonial, but enormously prestigious. Today, the Earl Marshal is responsible for organizing major state occasions like coronations, state funerals, and the opening of Parliament. He's also the head of the College of Arms, which regulates heraldry and coats of arms in England and Wales. There's a wonderful historical irony here. William Marshal rose from relatively modest origins, his father was a minor baron, to the highest echelons of power, yet his family name, Marshal, originated from what was essentially a servant's position. Through William's extraordinary career, what began as a functional household office was transformed into one of the most prestigious titles in the realm, second only to the monarch in ceremonial precedence. This transformation reveals something profound about medieval society. While we often think of the Middle Ages as rigidly hierarchical, William Marshal's story shows how merit, loyalty, and exceptional ability could elevate a man beyond the circumstances of his birth. From his father's position as royal stable master to becoming Regent of England, William's journey embodied the ideal of what a knight could achieve through service and skill. The endurance of the Earl Marshal title over 8 centuries stands as perhaps William's most visible legacy in modern Britain. Every time this ancient office appears in state ceremonies, it serves as a living connection to the man who embodied the chivalric ideal and whose life spanned one of the most formative periods in English history. William Marshal was far more than just a knight. He was a true architect of medieval history. From his humble beginnings as a hostage child with a noose around his neck to becoming the Regent of England, his life reads like an epic tale too extraordinary to be true. Yet the historical records confirm that this remarkable man did indeed shape the course of English history through his unwavering loyalty, exceptional courage, and brilliant leadership. What makes William's story so compelling is how he navigated the treacherous political waters of his time with both honor and pragmatism. In an age when betrayal was common and self-interest typically trumped loyalty, William remained steadfast in his commitments. He served not 1 but 5 kings faithfully: Henry II, the young King Henry, Richard the Lionheart, King John, and the young Henry III, even when doing so placed him in grave danger or required tremendous personal sacrifice. His life spanned a pivotal period that transformed England. William witnessed the aftermath of the Norman conquest as it evolved into what we now recognize as medieval England. He helped implement the legal reforms of Henry II that laid the groundwork for English common law. He stood beside Richard the Lionheart on crusade and helped preserve the realm during King John's tumultuous reign. And in his final great act of service, he saved the Plantagenet dynasty at a moment when it nearly collapsed. Perhaps most remarkable was William's longevity in an age of constant violence and limited medicine. He survived countless tournaments, battles, and political crises in an era when few men lived past 40. That he remained vigorous enough to lead armies in his 70s defies modern understanding and speaks to his extraordinary constitution and discipline. The biography commissioned by his family shortly after his death, The History of William Marshal, gives us precious glimpses into his character, his occasional dry humor, his strategic thinking, his devotion to his wife and children, and his deep religious faith that culminated in taking Templar vows on his deathbed. This text, itself a historical treasure, reveals a fully formed human being behind the legendary knight. William's legacy extended far beyond his lifetime. His descendants through his daughters married into royal families throughout Europe. The office of Earl Marshal that he established continues to this day. The chivalric ideals he embodied helped shape the concept of knighthood for generations, and the political stability he secured for England during his regency allowed the young Henry III to eventually rule a unified kingdom. So what made William Marshal the best knight who ever lived, as Stephen Langton called him? Was it his unmatched skill in tournaments and battles? His unwavering loyalty to the crown through decades of political turbulence? His wisdom and fairness as a regent? Or perhaps his ability to rise from modest origins to the pinnacle of power through merit rather than birth? I'll leave that for you to decide. What's certain is that in William Marshal, we find a rare historical figure who lived by his principles without becoming rigid or self-righteous, who wielded tremendous power without becoming corrupted, and who remained relevant and respected throughout an unusually long lifetime of service. In many ways, he represents the medieval ideal, a man who balanced martial prowess with wisdom, loyalty with independence, and ambition with honor. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the life of William Marshal, please hit that like button and share this video with fellow history enthusiasts who appreciate these remarkable medieval stories. Subscribe to the Medieval Archives for more content exploring the fascinating figures and events that shaped the Middle Ages. From legendary knights to powerful queens, from epic battles to everyday medieval life, we're dedicated to bringing history alive with the rich details and human stories that textbooks often miss. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the extraordinary life of William Marshal, the greatest knight who ever lived. Until next time, remember that the past is never truly gone. It lives on in the institutions, values, and stories we still cherish today.